Yo, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Chef Chop, and thanks for joining me for the next episode.
Hundreds, whoa, whoa, 20, 40, 80, whoa, whoa, I'm in my bag, jump in, go, 100, I got a 40 on my waistband, yeah, dump the clip, I'm a waste man, yeah, rich tags, got a taste, yeah, slip dick, product bag, let me smash, real quick from
Now today, I'm gonna be showing you guys how exactly to bot Footsites. Now even though I'll be showing you this on ECB, this is a method that you'll be able to take with you on any bot that you use in the future. Footsites are hands down my favorite type of sites to bot. They're fairly simple to bot, however, there are some very important things that you need to make sure you implement when you bot Footsites. Now, unlike Shopify, you don't need to worry about email harvesting or your speed. It really all comes down to your setup. Now I'm gonna be going into extreme detail, so make sure you guys are paying close attention. Now before we jump into the computer, I want to ask you to scroll down, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and show you guys support. Now also, if you're looking for a cook group, I just launched my own. It's called Chops and Clips. Now if you like my videos, just wait until you see what I have waiting for you inside of my cook group. We get the type of information that you're not finding anywhere else. If you know, you know. Now, not only do you get a lot of exclusive information, but you get one-on-one coaching with me and my team, and it's the perfect place to be for botters at all experience levels. I'm going to put a link to join my cook group down in the description, and I'll see you inside. Now without further ado, let's jump into the computer, and I'm gonna show you guys the Chef Chop method for botting Footsites. Alright, so you just put in your key on ECB. This should be the screen you're looking at. Let's go ahead and head over to the settings page. First thing you want to do is put your webhook right here from your Discord. And if you don't know how to get this webhook link, just go ahead and Google it, how to get a Discord webhook. Pretty much you're going to start your own server. The server that you're going to start is going to be just your personal server. You don't have to invite anybody to it, and it'll be purely to get webhooks from your bot, so you know that you copped. If you see those really cool pictures on Instagram or on Twitter, people flexing their cops, it's from the webhook inside of their bot. Every time they get a checkout, it shoots that webhook over to their server. Getting your webhook is really easy, so just Google it. But you start the server, you start your own channel, you go into the settings, and you create a webhook. Take that link, paste it in right here, go ahead and click test, and you'll get a nice notification to your server, and that's how you'll know that the webhook is working. Now I'm not going to be going over every single button, every single thing that ECB does. I'm just going to be showing you the method. If you need a full walkthrough, find a video for that, then come back and I'll show you guys my method. So the next thing you want to do, go ahead and head over to the Proxies tab. Now I'm sure you're wondering what proxies to use when you're botting Footsites. So it pretty much goes down like this. On release time, Footsites put up a queue. What a queue is basically a waiting room where the Footsites will stick all the people inside of there, and they'll let people through the queue in waves in order to be able to check out. Your number one priority when botting Footsites is to consistently get past queue. So you want to find proxies that help you do that consistently over and over. Now some people will tell you that ISPs are better for this. Some people will tell you that resis are better for this. However, what it comes down to purely is the provider. Now me personally, I have some ISPs that work better than some resis that work better than my ISPs, which tells me it comes down to the provider and who they're getting their proxies from. Now when I run about 50-50 resis and ISPs. However, I only use the providers that I know work on Footsite queues. Now all marketing aside, all plugs aside, the providers that I put down in the description of this video are the providers that I use for every single Footsite drop. That's after going through a bunch of providers, spending a lot of money on proxies after a lot of drops. I've came down to these providers, and those are the ones I use for every single Footsite drop. Now in the description next to the provider, I'm going to be putting if I use their ISPs or if I use their resis for Footsite drops. Now if you don't go with one of the providers in the description, which is totally fine, just make sure you're testing out as many as you can on every release, which means don't buy 20 gigs from just one provider. Buy 1 gig from this provider, 1 gig from another one, 1 gig from another one. Buy 25 ISPs from one, 25 from another, and just try out all the different providers that you can on one release and see which ones work the best. Now in order to do that, you need to go back and look at when you copped, look at your webhooks, look at the provider or the proxy list that you copped with, and make notes of these things so you know which providers to use in the future. So just to recap on that, ISPs don't work better, Resis don't work better. It's all about the provider that you choose to go with and trying out different providers until you find the best one for your situation. Okay, now when setting up your proxies, there's a few different ways you can do it. The first method involves putting a limited amount of proxies onto your proxy list. The other method, you cannot implement it with ECB, and that's because ECB doesn't have a rotate on Captcha feature. Pretty much what that is on bots like Ganesh, bots like Cyber and Kodai. They have an option when setting up your task that if the task runs into a Captcha or a data dome block, the bot will automatically rotate to a different IP from the list so that you can try to bypass the Captcha. Now, if you do have this feature on your bot, what I recommend doing is making a few really big proxy lists, usually with residentials, and have like 1,000 to 1,500 proxies in that list and only use those lists with that feature. Now, since we're using ECB and it doesn't have that feature, I'm going to be showing you this first method, which involves putting a limited amount of proxies onto the list so that you only use those set proxies. Now, I'm going to go into more detail about this in a little bit, but pretty much what you want to do is you want to have 25 ISPs on the list or 50 residential proxies on a list. That means don't have any more than 25 ISPs on one list and don't have any more than 50 residentials on one list. So go ahead and take your first list of your 25 ISPs. I usually like to name this after the provider, so let's go ahead and call this BLACKHAT ISP 25 since it's 25 ISPs. Go ahead and paste your list in here and press create. Go ahead and do this now for all of your proxies. So the next list we're going to make is going to be residentials. Let's go ahead and call this BLACKHAT Resi, and I'm going to put the number 50 so I know it's 50 residential proxies on this list. Let's call this one a SCARLET ISP 25. Let's call this one SCARLET Edge Resi 50. Let's call this one Proxy Heaven Resi 50. Nocturnal Resi 50. And Oculus Premium Private 50. So once you have your proxies in, go ahead and head over here to the Profiles tab. Go ahead and click Create New Profile right here in the corner. Now for the profile name, it doesn't matter what you name this because it's just for you personally, so you know which profile it is. I usually like to name this after the card provider with the last 4 digits of the card. So we'll call this one City 4321. Now for your email, you cannot use a catch-all email. If you use a catch-all email, you will get a PV, aka a cancellation. So try to use real emails. I suggest using either Gmail, Outlook. If you only have Yahoo's, those will work too. Go ahead and enter your email here. Now, as you guys know, I like to use real phone numbers for my profiles. So if you don't have a bunch of numbers, just go on to Google McDonald's Los Angeles or McDonald's your city. Take their phone number, place it in right here. Now go ahead and enter your virtual credit card or your real credit card number. Go ahead and enter your expiration month and the year, your CVV. Let's go ahead and head down here to the delivery and the billing info. Now I know there's a lot of confusion about billing information and if it needs to be real or if you can jig it. So I'm going to try to explain this for you guys for those who don't know. For billing information, it doesn't matter if you're botting, if you're shopping on Walmart, or shopping anywhere online in general, your billing information needs to be real and it cannot be jigged. The reason behind that is because your bank uses your billing address as a means of verification, which means when you type in your CVV, it needs to be correct the same way your billing address needs to be correct, because your bank uses your CVV, it uses your billing information, your name, it uses all that information together in order to tell if you're a fraudster or if you're the actual card holder, so they know if they need to decline the payment or let the payment come through. That means if you jig your billing address, it's not going to be the actual billing address that's registered with your bank. If you use the wrong billing address, it's not going to be the address that's registered with your bank, which means you cannot do anything to your billing address, your billing name, anything regarding the billing you cannot do, because it will flag the payment with your bank. So hopefully that made sense. Now before we enter our billing information, what we have to do is scroll down here and uncheck this box, use shipping info as billing info. Now you may want to turn this back on later, but as of now, let's just turn it off and I'll explain to you exactly what that means in a little bit. Scroll back up here, let's go ahead and put our real billing first name, our real billing last name, our real billing address, our real billing zip, real billing city, and our real billing state. Now let's go ahead and head over here to the delivery information. Now if you're getting a lot of cancellations or PVs on Footsites, it usually comes down to a couple of things, but the main one is your shipping information. Now I'm going to tell you guys a little secret that not a lot of people know when they buy Footsites. When you buy Footsites, you cannot and should not jig your shipping address. Yes, I know it's a little counterintuitive because we're so used to having to jig the address. However, Footsites allow you to receive multiple pairs to the same address. So there's no reason to jig your address. Not only should you not jig your address, but you cannot jig your address. Footsites use an address verification method, which means if you have 4 letters before your street name or a fake apartment number, it's going to be a red flag, and Footsites will cancel your order almost immediately, which means we cannot and we should not jig our address when we buy Footsites, and there's really no reason to because they ship out multiple pairs to the same address. So let's go ahead and enter our real delivery first name, our real last name, our nice unjigged shipping address. We don't need to enter a fake apartment number, or if you do live in an apartment, just enter your regular apartment number. Go ahead and enter your real zip code, your regular city. Now as you can see here, I do have the same exact shipping address as my billing address. So if I wanted to, I could click use shipping info as billing info because my shipping info is the same as my billing info. However, when you do not want to use this is, let's say you're ordering something for a friend, or you're shipping something to a pillbox or to your parents' house or to your girlfriend's house. Their address is not going to be the same as your billing address. So if my friend's address was 444 Main Street, I couldn't click this button down here because 444 Main Street is not the same as 123 Main Street. So my bank will decline the payment when they see 444 Main Street being used as the billing address. So just to be safe, you can leave this box unchecked. I personally do when I set up my profiles, unless I really know that I'm using the exact same shipping address as my billing address, which most of the time I'm not. Now once you got your good unjigged shipping address, your unjigged billing address, go ahead and scroll down, and I'm gonna go over this section right here called checkout frequency. Now like I just said, there are a few reasons why people get a lot of PVs or cancellations on Footsites. The first one, which is the most common, is usually the shipping address, and this usually is the other reason why, and it's because they're checking out too many times with the same profile. Not only that, but with my personal method, this setting is very important, and you'll figure out why in just a little bit. But first, let's go over what each one of these settings mean so you know exactly what you're setting up. So our options here are many, once, and once per SKU per site. Now what many means is you're telling ECB that there is absolutely no limit to how many times it can use this one profile to check out. What this will lead to is you getting multiple checkouts from this same profile over and over from the same Footsite. Now there's no situation where I recommend that you use this option, just because if you get, let's say, 10 checkouts from Footlocker for the same shoe using this one profile, Footlocker won't just cancel 9 out of 10 of those orders. It'll cancel all 10 of them, making your profile absolutely useless and just totally wasting a whole bunch of checkouts. Now the next option we have here is once. Now what once is telling ECB is that you only want to use this profile to check out on a Footsite one time, and that's it. Which means if you're running for multiple pairs on the same Footsite, once you get one checkout, ECB won't use this profile again. Now there's certain situations where it may be good to use this setting. However, there's an even better setting, and it's the one that I personally use, and that's once per SKU per site. Now like I said earlier, having this setting on is very important for this method, and you'll find out in a second exactly why. Now what you're telling ECB is it's okay to cop multiple pairs with this profile. However, it'll never cop 2 pairs of the same shoe from one Footsite, which means it'll never cop 2 pairs of mochas from Footlocker, or 2 pairs of mochas from Champs, or 2 pairs of mochas from Eastbay. It'll only cop 1 pair from every single Footsite, which means if you're going for the mochas, it'll cop 1 pair of mochas from Footlocker, then it'll cop 1 pair of mochas from Champs, then 1 pair of mochas from Eastbay, 1 pair of mochas from Kids Footlocker, so on and so forth. Now why it's also good is, let's say you're running for 2 different shoes at the same time. Let's say the mochas drop and the volts drop on the same exact day. You're telling the ECB that this profile can cop 1 pair of mochas and 1 pair of volts from Footlocker, and then cop 1 pair of mochas and 1 pair of volts from Champs, then cop 1 pair of mochas and 1 pair of volts from Kids Footlocker, so on and so forth. Now what this allows you to do is have multiple checkouts from this one profile, but it won't put your profile at risk for getting cancellations. Now hopefully that all made sense. I know I had some text up on the screen for you guys to follow along with, but if you do have questions about checkout frequency, go ahead and drop them down in the comments and I'll get back to you guys about it. So once we have once per SKU per site selected, go ahead and click create and you'll have your brand new profile. Now in creating my profiles, what I like to do is just right click the profile I just made, click clone, then I'll have a nice clone profile and I only have to go in here and change up certain pieces of information. Now these are the important pieces of info that you need to change on every single profile, no matter what. You need to make sure to change your email on every profile, your phone number on every profile, and your card number on every single profile. Now, like I said, Footsites allow multiples to be shipped to the same exact shipping address. So you don't need to change up your shipping address on every single profile. However, this is the caveat. No botter can tell you exactly how many multiples you can receive to the same address. All we know is that you can receive multiples. So you might be able to get 2 or 3 or 5 pairs or 20 pairs to the same address. Nobody really knows the exact number. So to be safe, you want to use as many shipping addresses as you possibly can. But if you only have one address to ship to, don't beat yourself up. You can go ahead and set the same shipping address for all of your profiles. So I'm going to change this to my friend's address. He's at 444 Main Street. I changed up my card number. I changed up my phone number. I'm going to change up my email, and then I'm going to go ahead and click save. Now what you want to do is try to have as many profiles as you possibly can, because more profiles just means you can check out more pairs. However, remember that you need to be putting individual info for your email, for the phone number, and for the credit card information for every single profile. Now just for this example, I'm just going to clone a bunch of these, so let's just act like I have 5 or 6 different profiles. Now once you have all your profiles imported, let's go ahead and head over to the task tab. I'm going to show you guys exactly how to set up your tasks so you can hit some huge clips on these Footsites. Go ahead and click create task here in the bottom left corner. Now the first thing we want to do is we want to select the site that you want to go after. For this example, let's go ahead and just use Footlocker. Go ahead and enter the SKU here. Now the good part about Footsites is, for the most part, they usually use the same SKU across all 5 Footsites. However, sometimes they do change the SKU, like they might throw a C at the end for Champs or an F for Footlocker. So just make sure to consult with your cook group or consult with the channels inside of Chops and Clips for the exact SKU. So for this one, I'm just going to put a fake SKU number here. Now for the sizing, usually each pair has a size group that's most profitable. Sometimes it's the larger sizes like 11 and up. Sometimes it's common sizes like 7.5 to 10.5, and sometimes, and most of the time, it's Bay or GS sizes, which are 7 and lower. So what you can do is beforehand go into Chops and Clips, look in the release guide channels, and see exactly which sizes you should be going after and select those in here. Or what I do personally is I usually run it on random, and I'll have some tasks allocated for those certain and more profitable sizes. So for this example, let's go ahead and say that the common sizes are the most profitable. So I'm gonna go ahead and click 7.5. Now in order to select multiple sizes, you have to select the first size, then hold down the shift key and select the last size that you want on your list. So for me, the first size is going to be 7.5, then the last size is going to be 10.5. So I'm going to hold down shift and then click 10.5, and as you can see, it's selected 7.5 and all the sizes in between. Now if you only want to run certain sizes, like let's say you want to run 7.5, then 8.5 and 9.5, you're going to have to make each one of those tasks separately. So if you're going to do it that way, it's going to be a little more complicated, so you might have an easier time when using ECB to just select a sizing group like I just showed you how to do here. And if you're not going to do that, just go ahead and run your tasks on random. So once we have our size in here, let's go ahead and head over to our profiles. Now when selecting your profiles, you also can use the shift key to select multiple profiles. However, for this method, we're going to be setting up the tasks for each profile one at a time. So don't go in here and select all the profiles like this. Just select one profile, and let's go ahead and head over here to the proxy list next. Now if you set this up correctly, you should have 25 ISPs on each list or 50 resis on each list, and that's because we're going to be running a 1-to-1 ratio for our resi lists and a 2-to-1 ratio for our ISP lists. So let's go ahead and do some resis first. So go ahead and select your resi list. Now let's go ahead and head over here to task number. So since we're talking about task numbers, I want to go over how many tasks you should be running when you're botting Footsites. So a lot of people don't know this, but when you're botting Footsites, you want to have at minimum 1,000 tasks. Yes, you heard me correctly. You want to have at least 1,000 tasks when you're going after a Footsite release. Now, those 1,000 tasks are not just going to be for one Footsite. They're going to be split amongst all of the Footsites. So I recommend you do this. I recommend that you have at least 100 tasks for every profile that you have. So that means in order to have at minimum 1,000 tasks, you should have at minimum 10 profiles, each profile getting 100 tasks each, and that'll equal 1,000 tasks in total. Now remember what I'm saying, we want to have at minimum 1,000 tasks, but that doesn't mean we should only have 1,000 tasks if we have the resources to have more. So if you have 20 profiles and you run 100 tasks per profile, you'll end up with 2,000 tasks. That's totally fine too. What you'll learn is that botters that hit big clips on Footsites, 50 to 100 pairs every drop, they're running thousands upon thousands of tasks for every single Footsite release. Me personally, I run 6 to 7 to 8,000 tasks whenever I'm botting Footsites, and I split that amongst my various bots. Now I'm sure you're wondering, couldn't I just run 300 tasks or 500 tasks or 700 tasks? And the answer is yes. However, the method I'm giving you is my personal method, and if you want to hit big clips on Footsites, this is exactly how you do it. And if you ask any other botter that's hitting big clips, they're going to tell you to do this exact same thing. Now usually when a shoe comes out on one Footsite, it drops on all of the Footsites. So like I said earlier, we'll be splitting up all of these tasks amongst all the Footsites in total, and it'll pretty much go like this. For each profile that you have, you want to be running 20 to 25 tasks for champs, 20 to 25 tasks for Footlocker, 20 to 25 tasks for Kids Footlocker, 20 to 25 tasks for Eastbay, and 20 to 25 tasks for Footaction. Now this will lead to you having around 100 to 125 tasks for every single profile that you have. Now the reason we can do this successfully is because of the once per SKU per site setting that we put into each one of our profiles. So it doesn't really matter how many tasks we assign to one profile. ECB will only check out a set number of times. What you're doing by setting this many tasks for each profile is you're giving every profile the highest chance of getting past Footsite queues and checking out. You want to be absolutely destroying Footsite releases with thousands upon thousands of tasks and giving each profile the highest chance of getting that once per SKU per site checkout. Now like I just said, we want to have 20 to 25 tasks per profile per Footsite. Now since we already set everything else up, all we have to do here is put our task number to 25. What that'll do is it'll give us 25 tasks for this profile going after Footlocker using SCARLET Edge residentials. So I know this is a lot of information, so I hope you brought your notebook. Make sure to come back to this part of the video and watch it a few times so you really get exactly what's going on. Now this is how scheduling works. When Footsites put up their queue, they do it about 5 minutes before release time. So what you want to do is you want to set the schedule for these tasks to be right after Footsites put up their queue. So what I do personally is I set this for 4 minutes and 59 seconds before release time. That way these tasks will start 1 second after Footsites put their queue up, and they'll have the most time possible to try to get through queue. So let's say that the drop is on August 1st 2021, and for me, I'm in the West Coast, so my drops are at 7 a.m. so I'm gonna go ahead and set this for 6:55 in 1 second, and that's in AM. Now as you can see, this task will start 4 minutes and 59 seconds before release time. Now once you have all this information set up exactly how you see it here, go ahead and click create. Now quickly go down here and click create task again. Now go ahead and keep all of this same information in. All we want to do now is head over here and click the next profile in line. Now since we're using a residential proxy list, we're going to run a 1-to-1 ratio to this proxy list here. That means for every one task I have, we'll have one proxy assigned to it. So for this residential list with 50 proxies, we can have 50 tasks assigned to it. So we just did 25 tasks, which means we can now do another 25 tasks, except this will be with the next profile in line. So go ahead and keep all of this same information. We're also going after Footlocker. You can reselect your size in here. After everything looks good, go ahead and click create. Open up your create task list again, and what you're going to do is head over to the next profile. However, this time we need to change up the proxy list. Since we already have 50 tasks assigned to this list, let's go ahead and head over to the next list. Now the next list I'm using is going to be an ISP list, and as we know, it only has 25 proxies on it. Now with ISP proxies, you can get away with running a 2-to-1 task to proxy ratio. What that means is for every one proxy that you have, you could assign 2 tasks to it. So for this list of 25 ISPs, I could assign 50 tasks to that list. So go ahead and double check everything else. You might have to reset your size in here. Make sure you have 25 tasks and then go ahead and click create. Let's open it back up and we're going to go to the next profile in line. Now we only have 25 tasks so far assigned to this ISP list, so this will be the next 25, which will make 50 total tasks assigned to this one ISP list. Go ahead and click create, and let's open the window right back up. So now that we have 50 tasks assigned to this one ISP list, let's go ahead and move to the next list in line, which for me is going to be another residential list. Make sure to select the next profile in line, double check all the other information that you have, and click create. Go back down to create tasks again, and we're just going to keep on rolling. Select your next profile, keep the proxy list the same since we could assign 25 more tasks to this. Go ahead and click create. Head back to create tasks, and what we're going to do is head to the next profile, select the next proxy list, and you're just going to keep this going over and over until you end up using all of your profiles. Now as you can see, this is going to need a lot of proxy lists in order to make this happen. So if you're only using a certain amount of providers, what you can do is generate a resi list, let's say with 500 proxies, and split those proxies up amongst multiple lists. So when I'm setting up, I might have BLACKHAT Residential 1, BLACKHAT Residential 2, BLACKHAT Residential 3, and just have it keep going down like that to split up all my resis amongst multiple lists. Now once you use up all of your profiles, go ahead and head back to the top of the list, and we can just change this now over to the next foot site. So the next foot site is going to be Footaction, and now we're at the top of our profile list. However, what you don't want to do is you don't want to reuse any of the proxy lists that you used already for a previous foot site, which means I'm not going to go back to the top of my proxy list here. I'm going to keep going down my list so that I'm always using new proxies for each foot site. So go and find your next list here. Mine is Premium Private Residentials from Oculus. I'm going to do 25 tasks again. I'm just going to click create. Go ahead and come back to the same window. Select the next profile in line and go ahead and click create. Come back to the same window again, select the next profile. We have 50 tasks on this list now, so let's go ahead and select the next list. Go ahead and click create. So hopefully you guys get it by the examples here. Pretty much you're going to be selecting each profile, assigning 25 tasks to it. Once each proxy list hits 50 tasks assigned to that list, you're going to move to the next proxy list. Once you get through all of your profiles, you're going to switch over to the next foot site. So it'll go 25, 25, switch to list, 25, 25, switch to list, 25, 25, switch to list. End of my profile list, I switch over to the next foot site. Then I go back to the top of my profiles, 25, 25, switch to list, 25, 25, then switch to list, 25, 25, switch to list again. Then I'm going to change that to a different foot site. Now, if you do run out of proxy lists, just go and X out of here and just make some new lists, generate some more proxies from your provider, and just create additional lists so that you have fresh proxies and you have enough lists so that you're able to make 25 tasks for every single foot site for every single profile that you have. Now what will happen is you'll end up with 100 to 125 tasks for every single profile for every single foot site. That way your one profile will be hitting all the foot sites at the same exact time. Not only that, but you'll be using different proxy lists for every 50 tasks that you have. So if you're using multiple different providers, you'll end up knowing exactly which provider works better. Or if you're using the same provider for all of your tasks, you'll have a better chance of hitting because some of the proxies may work better than others. So once you have all your tasks set up, there's really nothing else you need to do except get ready for the drop. Now, like I said earlier, Footsites put their queue up around 5 minutes before release time. So if you're going to be starting your tasks manually, start them 4 minutes and 59 seconds before release time, or just schedule your tasks how I just showed you here. Now another thing I want to go over with you guys is Captchas. Now Captchas honestly are brand new to Footsites. They just implemented them in the last few months and they totally suck. But pretty much this is how it goes. Some people will tell you to solve Footsite Captchas, other people will tell you to skip Footsite Captchas. Me personally, I 100% recommend that you do not waste your time solving Footsite Captchas. Now my reasoning behind that is that once you get one Footsite Captcha, that same task is going to get more and more and more Captchas over and over. It's pretty much an endless hole of Captchas. Not only that, but the Captchas you get on Footsites are extremely hard. So instead of wasting your time on Footsite Captchas, just find proxies that don't get you Captchas at all. Because pretty much if you're getting a Captcha on a Footsite, it means the proxy you're using is not good. There are some providers that I've tried out before where I would start my tasks and every single one of them would get a Captcha. Now what that means to me is that provider's proxies were not good at all. So I would just switch up the proxies to a different provider and those same exact tasks would not get Captchas any longer. But like I said, if you ask some people, some will tell you to just solve Captchas, other people will tell you to skip them. But personally, I don't solve Captchas at all. I just run thousands and thousands of tasks, so I don't need to solve Captchas in order to get a lot of checkouts. Plus, if you think about it like this, a lot of bots implemented the rotate proxy option for when running Footsites. What this means is that once the task hits a Captcha, the bot would just rotate the proxy to a new proxy on the same list. I'm actually really surprised that ECB doesn't have this option yet, because most bots that bot Footsites have this option. When I run Ganesh or Cyber or Kodai, I always have this option on, purely because even if I got a Captcha, I'm not going to solve it anyway. So it tells the bot just rotate the proxy out and keep trying until you find a proxy that goes through without getting a Captcha. But just to reiterate, you need to be using good providers. Use the providers that I give you in the description. If you're not going to, just try out providers until you find ones that get you past queue and don't get you Captchas. Now another thing I want to go over with you is exactly how Footsite drops go. Now something I noticed is that a lot of people think that all the shoes drop right then on release time, and if they don't cop right there on the dot, then the drop is over. But with Footsites, drops usually last 1 to 2, sometimes even 3 hours. Now the reason behind that is because of the queue. Footsites will let more and more people in and they'll keep dropping more stock and more stock and more stock. So a shoe may say sold out, but people are still checking out an hour after the release time. Not only are they dropping more stock, but there are people getting PVs or cancellations, and when somebody gets their order canceled, the Footsites will put the stock back onto the website. This is one of the things that we refer to as a restock. When people say Footsites are restocking, we're referring to multiple different moments. One of those moments are right after release time when a shoe says sold out, but people are still getting checkouts. That's because Footsites are restocking over and over and letting more people check out. So if you don't hit on the initial drop, keep running your tasks, because you'll probably hit on some of those instant restocks that happen for 1 to 2 to 3 hours after drop time. Now, not only that, but there are official restocks that happen as well. Usually Footsites will drop some more stock later on in the same day. Also, they'll drop more stock the next day, usually around the same time. So if you don't get any checkouts on the initial drop, definitely run for restocks later that day, and run for restocks the next day and the next day and the next day. Usually at 10 a.m. Eastern in the morning is when they drop more restocks, or they drop them around the evening time around 6:30 to 8:30 Eastern. Me personally, I might hit 30 to 50 pairs on the initial drop, but then I'll hit another 30 to 50 pairs on the restocks. So restocks, meaning all restocks, are important when running on Footsites. So now that you have all of that set up and you're ready for your Footsite drop, I'm gonna go ahead and jump off the computer and I'm gonna go over servers just for a little bit. So I'm sure you're wondering if you need a server when you're running Footsites. Now regardless of the type of Footsite bot that you're using, it really comes down to the type of computer that you have. Now when running your bot, if you see that your computer slows down while you're running on release time, I suggest that you just move it over to a server. Me personally, I don't run any bots on my local computer just because I have Discord going and other programs going on release time, so I don't want to mess anything up. Because what you do run the risk of is your computer shutting off or your bot just completely crashing, and then you won't be able to get your checkouts. So just to be safe, I do recommend that you put your Footsite bot onto a server whenever you do run. The good part about it is unlike TSB, you don't need as big of a server in order to run those thousands upon thousands of tasks. You should be able to get away with the server with only about 16 RAM whenever you run a Footsite bot. Most local computers that you do have, that you buy from the store, only have about 8 gigabytes of RAM, and that's the reason that you need to move them off your local computer in the first place. Now, if you're using a gaming computer or something that's really built to handle a lot of processing, then you might be able to get away with running your bot on your local computer. But for an everyday computer or a regular laptop, I suggest that you just move it over to a server and run your Footsite bots on there. Now, if you have any questions at all about Footsites or just botting in general, drop them down in the comments. You guys know I get back to everybody about everything. Now, if you want to really get deep and you're really serious about botting, I highly suggest that you join my cook group, Chops and Clips. I do one-on-one coaching every single day. My DMs are always open to everybody. On top of that, I have a lot of OG botters in there that can teach you guys a lot of things. Our members have been absolutely destroying every single release. We do group buys almost every other day, free giveaways, a whole bunch of dope stuff, man. Follow us on Twitter and you'll see what you've been missing out on. I'm gonna put a link down in the description so you can come and join us. Now, while you're down in the description, look at the suppliers that I put in there for you guys. Those are the tools that I use for every single release, and I absolutely recommend that you use them as well. Now, before you leave, scroll down, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and show your support. I'd like to thank everybody for being here, and I'll see you guys on the next episode.